I think me getting in to the music industry was a very gradual, almost an accidental thing. I was a high school teacher, and you know, when I was a teenager, I was playing guitar and all. I've been playing guitar and singing since I was a little kid. And I guess when I was a teenager, I had a sort of pipe dream of maybe being a rock star or something. And when I got out of high school, I started playing little bar and grill places, and I was like the human jukebox in the corner, play cover songs and hope that people would give me $1 or $2 if I played a song they liked. And so I was learning everything from like Skinner and the Allman Brothers, Garth Brooks and David Allen Coe and Dave Matthews Band and Matchbox 20, Hootie and the Blowfish, some Bob Seger and Jimmy Buffett, you know, all sorts of covers. But after a while, I got sort of tired of doing that because I was writing my own stuff, and it really wasn't a, you know, those kind of environments weren't really good for me, you know, playing my own music. So I met my wife and decided that really what was more important to me was, you know, having stability and security and being able to provide for a family one day. So I decided to be a high school teacher, and you know, wanted to make a difference, and took my education real seriously, and did really well at that, and got my teaching job. And all through that time, though, I started realizing that I wrote just because it's part of who I was. You know, it made me happy. It was my way of dealing with stuff. And right on up through, you know, when I began teaching, I was writing songs and compiled a pretty extensive catalog. I mean, I guess by that point I probably had 70 or 80 songs. And then I was playing open mic nights just to kind of keep my chops up, and it was something fun to do. And one of the open mics I played had a contest, and I won it, and the prize was 12 hours of studio time. So I was able to go into the studio for the first time, and I picked what I thought were the best 10 songs out of my catalog, and recorded just acoustic versions of them. Really on you know, I only had, you know, a day. I ended up spending a little bit of my own money to get an extra day, but I had to go in there real quickly and just record those songs. And that was my first album, and it had a song called 21 that really really took on a life of its own. So after that record, I started playing more bar gigs on the weekends, able to play my own music because people had the CD and knew the songs. You know, a lot of people were burning the CD. It was LimeWire was really big back then, and Napster, so people were getting for free, and that was cool with me because you know, I only spent $800 of my own money to make the record, and I made that money back the first night selling it to friends and family. So the next year I saved money from the bar gigs and was able to make another record, and then the next year I made another record. So my first 3 records I made when I was still teaching school. It was just sort of my hobby, and fortunately technology made it so that the music could spread, and people you know, shared the files with each other, and MySpace was really big at the time, and people found out about me through there. I was actually the #1 unsigned country artist on MySpace for like 2 years, and by the time I left my teaching job, I was the #1 artist on there. So a lot of people discovered me through there, and I was able to continue going out and playing shows, and the crowds just got bigger and bigger, and eventually it just got to a point where I knew that it was time for me to leave the teaching job, mainly because I wasn't doing a good job at it anymore. You know, it's like I couldn't do a great job at either music or teaching unless I was able to focus on one. So I feel blessed, you know, since I left the teaching job it's been about 8 years, that you know, things have been you know, done really well. It's been a very, very gradual, you know, process of just going further and further away from home, and building audiences around the country, just like we built them, you know, around Georgia and all around the Southeast. Just continuing to go there and you know, putting on the best show I can put on. But now, you know, those first 3 records have now turned into 8 records. You know, 2 live albums and 6 studio albums, and I'm working on my 9th album right now. I live in a little town called Jefferson, Georgia, same town I grew up in, and after I graduated college at UGA, my wife and I moved there, and that's where we're raising our 2 kids, and it's nice living there, still around, you know, the same family and friends that I grew up with. And I think it's an important part of who I am as an artist, and affects my writing. My writing, I think, has a strong sense of place, and you know, home's really important to me. And sometimes, you know, there's no doubt that moving to Nashville would be good for my career, but I think it would have a it would certainly affect my writing, and I don't know that I'm wanting to make that jump and more importantly, I'm really happy living at home, and my kids are happy there. My kids go to the same school that I went to. I've been around music since I was a little kid. My dad was in a southern rock band with one of my cousins, and actually my keyboard player now, Lee, was the keyboard player in my dad's band. They were called Six Gun, and then they were called Smoke. So they would come over and practice at the house, and I remember just being real little and thinking that was really cool. I remember holding my dad's guitar for the first time. He had this old Stratocaster, and so the guitars were always around the house, and music was around the house. I went to a Baptist church in town and sang in the choir there. When I was in elementary school, I started singing in the chorus and got to go to this honors chorus thing, and that had a big impact on me. I had a really great gifted teacher when I was young, and he gave me voice lessons and got me involved in drama, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, but when I became a teenager, that was really when I started taking the guitar seriously. I came down to Florida one spring break to hang out with my grandparents, and they didn't live close. They lived about 3 miles from the beach, and during the day there wasn't much to do there. And my cousin had a guitar sitting there, and he had some songbooks. He had like a George Strait songbook and a Bob Seger songbook that just had the lyrics and the chords over the top, and it had the chord shapes. And I already knew some of the basic chords from my dad teaching me, but when I was able to combine the chords with the singing, it just clicked, and all of a sudden I just couldn't put it down, and I was obsessive over it. And I performed a few times during high school at these dinner theaters. I was in the plays too, like one-act plays and stuff. I was into drama, and they would let me play a song or two whenever we had a play, before the play. So those were my first experiences performing, and yeah, they were really great experiences. In Jefferson, athletics are huge, football and wrestling, and I never was much of an athlete, so it was cool to be recognized for something, to have that thing that everybody knows you for. The past year or so of my career have been full of changes, just learning the ropes. There's no, there's a saying, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and through most of my career, things have come really easy. It was amazing. I felt like the fans just gave it to me. I'm very grateful for that, because that was, there was no radio campaign or any kind of real marketing campaign. It was just, allowing fans to do what fans do, and when you think something's cool and you like it, you want to share it with people, and that's why I'm able to do this. And so for the first part of my career, it was really easy. I just had to go out and play music every night. And then I started to get to a point where, as you go to a bus, and the band grows and the expenses grow, the cost of making albums grows, because every album, I want to step my game up and make a more and more competitive album. My goal, when I'm making records, is to make a record that I'm not going to be embarrassed by in 3 years. And that's not always easy to do. So the past few years I had to confront some challenges, I guess, maybe the glass ceiling that people talk about, and had to make some changes. I made some changes on the road with the band, and on the business side of things I made some changes. And where it's led me is to working with a producer named Keith Stegall in Nashville, and that's a big deal. Keith Stegall produced all the Alan Jackson records, all the Zac Brown Band records. He worked with Merle Haggard and George Jones and Randy Travis, and he's a real staple in country music and has had a big influence on it. I've either produced or co-produced all of my records up until now, so I felt like in order to make the kind of record that I want to make, I couldn't produce it. I just knew what my limitations were. I focus on writing and performing, and I knew I had to have somebody, on the producer side who focused on that all the time and was an expert at that. And so it's been great working with him on this record. I've learned a tremendous amount, and it's allowed me to focus on what I do best, and that's the writing and performing, especially in the studio. So we're putting the finishing touches on that record now, and we're going to get that out in 2014. So I'm excited about that. Now we don't have a release date yet. We're hoping for the first part of 2014, sooner than later, but it just depends on what happens. In the country world, if you're going to grow at some point, you gotta look at radio. And this past year, I've really thought about my goals in the long term. What is it that I want to accomplish? And my sort of mantra through all of this, since I left my teaching job, was I want to reach as large of an audience as I can reach without sacrificing my integrity. And you know, a lot of times to make a run at radio and more mainstream country, you gotta let go of some things as far as the writing goes. You know, most of those songs were co-written or produced in a certain way to sound a certain way. So for me, I've never been willing to sacrifice my sound or the way I approach writing in order to get that audience. However, the country format has changed so much over the past 10 years. Now the format is really conducive to someone like myself. So I'm hoping with this record that we can crack it at country radio and be able to you know, achieve that goal of continuing to reach a larger audience without having to change, you know, who I am as an artist. And I've thought a lot about just the tradition of country music, and I want to be a part of that tradition. I've gotten involved with the Country Music Hall of Fame. They made me an honorary member there this year. That was really cool. I got to play the Grand Ole Opry twice this year. And for so many years I was sort of in no man's land as far as genre. I didn't know what I was. I wrote songs, and I think as I've gotten older and thought about it more, like it's country music. It doesn't sound like what everything on the radio might sound like, or what people's preconceived notions of country music is. But you know, I was born and raised in a small town in the South, and I still live there, and I'm immersed in it, and I write from the heart. I write, you know, about my experience, and you know, how can it be anything other than country music? So I've really focused lately on you know, claiming a spot in that tradition and being embraced by that tradition. What I tell people who are starting out making music is the most important thing is to find joy in it. And if you, it sounds cliche and it sounds like you're dodging the question, but you're really not. If you find joy in making music, you can't fail at it, because that's really the point of it, is, you know, the joy that it brings the person making the music. And odds are, unless you've gotten to a place where you've experienced the pure joy of it, you're not going to be able to find an art audience for it. So that's the first step, and that's really the point of it all. Everything else is icing. You know, being able to make a living doing it's icing. But you know, when I was a kid, I was surrounded by people who didn't make money playing music, but they made great music, and it made them happy, and it made the people around them happy, and that's what it's all about. So do that, and then if you're meant to have an audience, you'll know, because people, they'll want to hear more of it. They'll want to share it with other people, and now technology's made it so that that's a lot easier than it has ever been before.